As of lately, I have been getting up to some mischief over on Twitter. Specifically, I was talking smack about the current event going on in Call of Duty Black Ops 6, the Black Ops Tribute event, which we'll talk about later in the video. But this went kind of viral, getting over 500,000 views, and yeah, needless to say, I wanted to back up my smack talk, and in doing so, I want to take a look at every single seasonal event that has ever been in a Call of Duty game. This is not going to include anything, for example, like map packs. Not like that. These are specifically seasonal events, and by the end of this video, I think we'll be able to see which Call of Duty game had the best events, because what I'm going to do is, as we look at each of the games, I'm going to rate them on a tier list. S being the top tier, and then A, B, C, and then F being the absolute worst. And by the end of this video, we should be able to see what makes a good event, which Call of Duty games had the best events, how they can improve events moving forward. So without further ado, let's dive in. And I'm wondering if you know what the first seasonal event was in any Call of Duty game. Probably not what you're thinking. So that is right, it is Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. This event lasted 1 day long, and all it was Grandmaster Appreciation Day, and anyone who hit Grandmaster got an amazing reward. One advanced supply drop. Yep, you didn't hear me wrong, that was it. That was the entire event. They do get better from here on out though. So I think it's clear that we have to give Advanced Warfare an F just because it was one event and you could barely even consider it an event whatsoever. So Black Ops 3, the reason why events started to change here is because of supply drops. All of a sudden, they started introducing items that you could only get through these events with supply drops. So for example, in Operation Snowblind, you had the XPR-50, which was a new weapon available in supply drops. You had the Permafrost Camouflage, which was only available in supply drops, as well as character skins and equipment that you could get for individual operators, again, only available through the event. Now, these items would stay permanently in supply drops, so it's important to mention that. They also implemented new gameplay with the event as well. For example, they added in the new map, Redwood Snow, which was a winter variant of the map Redwood, as well as the game mode Infected. So this is a similar formula that all of the events would use. So another example we have is Operation Swarm, which would introduce 2 new weapons to supply drops, including the RPK and the Sten. The map that was introduced was a different variation of Fringe, which was called Nightfall. We also had Prop Hunt as the game mode, and again, we had the Hive Camouflage as well as various different skins for characters based around that theme as well. Black Ops 3 also had the first of an event that we would see over and over again with the Days of Summer event. This would come out with the Awakening DLC. The weapons that would be added to the supply drops include the KVK-99M as well as the Max GL, and would introduce the Cherry Fizz camo, which is actually one of my favorite camos of all time. Again, all in supply drops. And then their final and weakest event was the Zombie Celebration, aka Halloween Celebration event that went on in this game. This one basically just included a free overgrowth camo, some free liquid dividium, and was essentially allowing players to play some of the zombies maps for free. Oh, and they also had Blackjack's gun game. Now, I'm torn on this one because really Black Ops 3 was the first game to introduce events whatsoever, what made me want to put it at a B. However, the events completely revolved around the various different supply drops, which I don't love. So I think I'm going to drop this one down to a C, even though it was very innovative and it would follow this formula for games to come. So we actually had less events in Infinite Warfare than we did in Black Ops 3. The first of which was once again Days of Summer. This one had a little bit more to it. First of all, 3 weapons were introduced with the Proteus, Trek 50, and the M2187. We also got a new map known as Tourista, as well as new characters, which were weird because they were like Captain Price and Ghost, which was very odd. And of course, with a new event, they had new supply drops, which were the Days of Summer supply drops, as well as free items that they gave out daily for 5 weeks straight. There was only one other event in Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and that was Willard Wyler's Halloween Scream. Now, this basically came down to 2 different parts. First of all, they implemented a mode, which was essentially just boss fights in zombies, which honestly I think is pretty cool. They also implemented weekly rewards similar to the Days of Summer event, as well as a new type of supply drop, which were simply Halloween Scream supply drops. And then in multiplayer, they implemented a new map, which was the Carnage map. So here's the thing, when it comes to Infinite Warfare, there really was only 2 events, which is actually less than Black Ops 3, which makes me actually want to move Black Ops 3 kind of up to like a B- and Infinite Warfare down at a C. And keep in mind, at the same time, both of these were essentially based off of supply drops once again. Now, what's wild about this is Modern Warfare Remastered multiplayer was going on at the exact same time as Infinite Warfare, and it had events going on as well. In fact, one of the events that it had actually had nothing to do with Infinite Warfare, and this was the very first Shamrock and Awe event. This one would be carried forward in other games as well. First off, implementing the map called Daybreak Downpour, which was another version of Downpour that wasn't pouring rain, and it also introduced new camouflages as well, known as the Prism and the Folium, which were then a part of the Shamrock and Awe supply drops, similar to events like we saw in Infinite Warfare. Now, in the summer, when Infinite Warfare had Days of Summer, so did Modern Warfare Remastered, introducing Beach Bog, a new variant of Bog, which had several different playlists on it, including Snipers Only, Demolition, Slasher, Prop Hunt, and Beachcomber, which was a part of that map as well. And of course, it also implemented the Days of Summer supply drops that were only available in Modern Warfare Remastered as well, which had 3 of its very own camos. So believe it or not, Modern Warfare Remastered actually had a little bit more content in its Days of Summer event than actually Infinite Warfare did. I don't know if we want to call these events, but Modern Warfare Remastered also had various different versions of supply drops that were available, but were available made indefinitely. So this include Operation Arctic Wolf, Operation Lion Strike, and Operation Copperhead, which included various different weapons, cosmetics, camos, things like that, and were often a part of these certain events. For example, Copperhead was a part of Days of Summer. So Modern Warfare Remastered, I personally think, is very similar to Infinite Warfare, but might just be slightly better. So if Infinite Warfare is a C, Modern Warfare Remastered is kind of like a C+. And then again, Black Ops 3 had more events than both of them. So Call of Duty World War II is where seasons started to go wild, because this is kind of when they started to implement their DLC with the various different seasons. So for example, the first one that we had was the Winter Siege event. Now, similar to previous games, they implemented the Winter Siege supply drops, which had 5 new weapons inside it, including 2 new melee weapons. They also introduced the new map, which is Winter Quarantine, which had a 24/7 playlist, as well as a wintry gun game, which would include the skins that were on the weapons as well. The other seasons would kind of follow this model, so as we go through the other seasons, we're essentially going to just brief over them unless there is something different about them. So for example, the Resistance event that took place just a month after introduced the new Resistance division, had 3 new weapons which were a part of the supply drops, Prop Hunt and Demolition were added in, and then each and every event in this game added an update for the headquarters, which was kind of like this open world area where players could roam around. This happened every single event. This is followed by Operation Shamrock and Awe, which actually implemented Shipment 1944, as well as the Leprechaun Manhunt, 2 new weapons, as well as an update to the headquarters, and of course, more supply drops. Then we have Operation Blitzkrieg, which is more of the same, but this time there was also a community event that was completed by doing contracts and orders. So then we had the early summer event of the Attack of the Undead. No, this wasn't a Halloween event. It included game modes like Horde Point and Infected, as well as 7 new weapons and new camouflages, which were all available in the updated headquarters as well. This would continue with Liberty Strike, which also had a community event, Days of Summer, which was more of the same. Then we have Covert Storm, which added the Commando division, and then finally we had Halloween Scream. So this is the thing with World War II. It blended the line between its actual seasons and DLC and events really, really well. With the events, they updated things like the headquarters. They had challenges and things you could do to get more supply drops, which would give you event-specific supply drops. And this, in my opinion, was the best way supply drops were done, the best way events were done early on, and not to mention there was 9. One of these events pretty much happened every 5 weeks. This might be controversial, but I truly believe the events in Call of Duty World War II were absolutely an S tier, which may be shocking, but keep in mind, this was Sledgehammer working on this game. Keep that in mind moving forward.
Welcome to the party.
Now here's the problem. This is where we get into the difference between seasons and seasonal events. So for example, Black Ops 4 had many seasons, starting out with Operation Absolute Zero, after which we had Operation Grand Heist, and there were modes, there were skins, and there were unlocks available via these different seasons. They continue on with another Shamrocked and Awe event, Operation Spectre Rising, another Days of Summer event, Operation Apocalypse Z, and finally Operation Dark Divide. Now these were all seasons, there was all game modes, there was all things you could unlock, but this is where the line is blurred between seasonal events and actual seasons. So those were all of the seasons that the game had, but the seasonal events that were added were really lame. So just some of them, just to list them off, are like Winter Event, 4th of July, Barbarians, Halloween Event, and they were all based around requisitions, aka supply drops. In other words, earning items by essentially just playing the game. So I am really struggling with this one because here's the thing, if you were including the operations, this could be like an A or even B+ tier, but this is not about just seasons, and you're really going to see that divide coming up with seasonal versus season events. And it was really split in this game because this was the game where they were starting to get rid of supply drops, but then later they brought them back, and those were the events that they put in, was the requisitions, which really sucked. I'm gonna put this at like a B-, even though if it's just the events, it should be an F, but no, you know what? We're gonna put it at a C+ because the events are horrible, but the operations were good, but the operations were like the C. You're gonna see what I mean moving into the next game. So Modern Warfare 2019 is where we can really start to see the difference between a season, so season 1, 2, 3, so on, when various different maps, operators, things like that, battle passes were added in, and the actual seasonal events. There was actually only 2 in Modern Warfare 2019, the first of which was Games of Summer. This coincided with the Olympic Games, and basically they gave us a bunch of different trials on various different maps and areas where you had to do a different amount of things, and different amount of score would give you a bronze, silver, or gold medal. And actually countries were competing against each other on a leaderboard to see who could get the most medals. And I thought this was really cool and very different than anything else we have ever seen. And it wasn't just playing the normal game, getting XP, it was doing something new that was never in the game before. Speaking of which, that brings us to the second and only other event that was in Modern Warfare 2019. And this is one that we would see over and over again, and that is the Haunting, specifically the Haunting of Verdansk. Now, this is when they would start to implement various different operator skins, bundles, things along those lines in with a brand new event, which had new game modes on Verdansk, a whole new aesthetic, as well as in multiplayer as well. I remember when the trailer dropped for the Haunting of Verdansk, we had never seen anything like this before. Like, we've seen crossovers with characters and things like that, but we've never seen an actual event where they built out in-world challenges in Warzone or in-game modes based around this completely different thing. And I truly believe that this event revolutionized seasonal events moving forward. Now, this is when you guys are going to start to disagree with me, because here's the thing. There was only 2 events in Modern Warfare 2019, but they are way better events than any other game that we've got. They aren't just get XP or do a challenge. They implemented something brand new. And in fact, Modern Warfare even created the Haunting of Verdansk, which set into effect a whole bunch of different events that would come in the future. The events were amazing, but there wasn't many of them. I struggle to put this one at A or B, but if I'm just ranking how good the events are, it's A. If I was ranking how many, it would probably be F or C, but how good they are and how different they are, I want to put it at A, but I'm really torn. It's either A or B here, but this is where people are going to start to disagree with me.
Notorious.
Now, moving into Black Ops Cold War, this is where those events that we saw go in a specific direction with Modern Warfare 2019 shifted, and they shifted in the way of challenges. In fact, nearly every event that we had in Black Ops Cold War, which there were 7 of them, were almost exactly the same with a little bit of changes. First off, we had Rebirth Island. This is when they implemented Rebirth Island, and it was all based off of completing specific challenges on Rebirth Island. Then we had the Outbreak event. This is when Outbreak was added in, as well as the Vodianoi on Warzone. Now with this, we had zombies challenges, we had multiplayer challenges, we had Warzone challenges. Then we had the Hunt for Adler. At this point, you're probably realizing each of these events had to do with a specific plot point in various different seasons. So again, based off of challenges. Then we had 80s Action Heroes event, Groundfall, the Numbers, and then the one that was different but still very, very similar, the Haunting. Now, I might have an unpopular opinion here, but this Haunting event I truly don't believe was as good as the original one in Modern Warfare 2019. Again, they had the event just like every other event in Black Ops Cold War. There was various different challenges you could do, like get eliminations while using the Ghost perk, or get eliminations in the Infected game mode, things like that, and they would all give you rewards, emblems, weapon charms, things along those lines. And yeah, it was just every single event within Black Ops Cold War was completely based off of finishing off challenges. So Black Ops Cold War, we had 7 events, all of which were based off of challenges. There wasn't really anything exceptional or anything that was different game mode wise. So I think I put this one at B. Solid amount, decent rewards, but nothing amazing. So here's the crazy part about Call of Duty Vanguard. They basically took the model that we had with Black Ops Cold War and just kind of amplified it a little bit. The first event that we had was the Secrets of the Pacific, and this was of course incorporating Caldera. We also had Festive Fervor, which again, these are all based off of challenges. Then we had Rebirth Reinforced, Operation Monarch, which was of course Godzilla versus King Kong. The big difference with this game, Vanguard, is most of the events, the challenges weren't just random things within the game. They specifically had to do with LTMs or new things that were incorporated in that season. Then we had Mercenaries of Fortune, of course, to do with Fortune's Keep, the Titanium Trials. Then we had the Last Stand event, which would be the introduction of something brand new. We weren't just going to be completing challenges. We were specifically going to be doing an event that was heroes versus villains, where you'd kind of choose what faction you played for, and then you'd push to succeed on either side, and then you got your rewards based off of how much you did. This is a combination of 2 things, but again, this would be the first time that we saw one of many of these events. You'll see what I mean moving forward. So similar to Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War, I think Vanguard is in a similar boat. However, I think it's slightly better because they leaned a little bit further into those LTMs and things like that. Again, there wasn't anything game-changing, groundbreaking. The rewards were not amazing. If we compare it to Modern Warfare 2019, these were events that were simply created just to be an event. These were created to kind of coincide with the other things that were releasing and as a way of increasing retention. For fun with Modern Warfare 2019, or retention with Vanguard. This is something we will definitely see continue. So Modern Warfare 2 went for a similar amount of events. We started out with Support a Team, which basically was kind of like heroes versus villains, where you could pick a team that you were kind of working for and earn some rewards along the way. Then we had Path of Ronin, which is a more traditional style complete challenges event, where at this point they also had an event to coincide with it that would give a camo as a reward. We will see this repeated soon. Then we had the Trophy Hunt event. This was one where you would go in, kill people, or do specific things, where you could then pick up trophies, and you had to accumulate a total amount of trophies to buy items. We would definitely see this one return once again. And we had the Assault on Vondel, the Boys Diabolical event, which was all about using different types of weapons to get camos. The Faction Showdown, which again was kind of like heroes versus villains. And then finally, the Haunting. And I have to say this, I truly believe that this Haunting event was the best Haunting event we have ever had. The way that they implemented these like boss fights, which were from other games, like was from Diablo, into this game and it was a part of a Warzone game where people could come in and fight you. We have never seen anything like that in Warzone to begin with, and then that was actually that cool. I truly believe they knocked this haunting event out of the park, and I truly believe we may never get an event ever again that was as good as that haunting event. So you could do the various different things around the map, and then that would earn you souls, and then the souls you could then use to buy various different items in game. I thought this event was incredibly well done. So Modern Warfare 2, I did not like Modern Warfare 2. I did not think it was a good game, but events wise, I think it did pretty decent. Now, some things that it did well. It had a varied amount and types of events. So there wasn't a huge number of events, but they were very different. On top of that, I think it probably has the best haunting event that we ever got, with like the bosses you could fight, things like that. In creating specific game events just for that event, I think is absolutely amazing. And this is when we started to see camos get implemented as rewards for events. We would see this repeat very soon, but I mean, we did have that in World War II. It was just in supply drop. So once again, bringing back the camos for rewards, which I think is everyone's favorite rewards. So yeah, not the best game, but I think it had pretty decent events. So then there's Modern Warfare 3, and this is where things got absolutely crazy for seasonal events. So this is gonna suck to edit, but let me go through all of this. First off, we had the Call of Duty Endowment True Legends event, then Makarov Returned, then 141 Training Week, the Dune Trial of Power event, Santa's Slayground, Vortex Wars Domain, the Boys Soup Takedown, the Boys Bot Week, the Boys Super Siege, Horde Hunt, the Year of the Dragon, Cryptid Boot Camp, the Walking Dead Fear the Living event, Dune Rule of Fate, Warhammer 40k for the Emperor, Vortex Decay's Realm, Godzilla vs. Kong Battle for Hollow Earth, Blaze Up, Vortex VI Rust Mainframe, Call of Duty Endowment You Assist Veterans, Critical Countdown, Mobile Suit Gundam Legends, the Fallout Vault Dwellers event, Altered Strain, Retro Warfare, Redeployment Missions, Vacation Squad, Vortex Death Slayer, WWE Super Slam, Conquest, Echo Endo Live, Wildlife Most Wanted, Emotional Overdrive, Purgatory Island, The Walking Dead Road to Terminus, Trick or Treat Candy Hunt, and finally, the Modern Warfare 3 Rewind. Okay, that is a lot of events, nearly one every single week. Now, with this, there's essentially 3 different types of events that they had: the XP events, the challenge events, and then pick up stuff events like the Trick or Treat Candy event. Now, these events, I would say, basic gameplay wise, are very boring. They're the same things over and over again, either completing challenges, getting XP, or picking stuff up. But the rewards and variety of crossovers was really good. I do not think these events were perfect. I think they could be designed a little bit more for fun as opposed to retention, but just the sheer amount of them was absolutely wild. And almost every single one of them, or at least a lot of them, there would be a camo reward, which is everyone's favorite reward. Now, I think just from sheer numbers, Modern Warfare 3 has to go at S tier. Now, I think World War II was better than it. I even think the Modern Warfare 2019 events were better than it, but just for sheer numbers and amount of content, the fact that a lot of these events had camos as rewards, you gotta give Modern Warfare 3 an S tier on this one. You really do. So moving into Black Ops 6, it's a very similar thing to Modern Warfare 3. However, there's a little less events, bit more quality items minus camos, and I think a little less variety in the style of gameplay. So first off, we have the hit list event. This one was one of the events where you had to go around picking up skulls, in other words, picking up items. Then we had Merry Mayhem. This one was a simple XP event. Then we had the Gobblegum event, which was literally just use Gobblegums, probably the lamest event we ever had in probably any of the games. Then after that, we had Archie's Festive Frenzy, which was another pickup event. Then we had the Squid Game 2 event, which I think out of all of them for Black Ops 6 is the best one. They implemented game modes, things along those lines, which we do quickly have to talk about, because the other thing that they implemented with this event was a paid track. So now we are paying for part of the event as well, almost as if it's another battle pass, because all this event actually is simply getting XP. So in other words, they found a way to monetize the events. So yes, they implemented game modes and other new things like that, which I enjoyed, but you gotta pay for half the items now. So then we had the Terminator event, Shadow Hunt event, which was one of the might actually be the only challenge event that we had, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Clover Craze, the Return to Verdansk, which might be one of the best events that we've ever had, going around to various different locations on Verdansk, finding safes. I still think there was ways where it could have been a little bit better, maybe consistent spawn locations of the safes and things like that. And then finally, the Black Ops Tribute event, which is once again another XP event, which still none of these events have given us a single camo as a reward. The final game we have here is Black Ops 6. Now, I think a lot of you are expecting, because I've dumped on Black Ops 6's events so much, for me to like put this at F or something, but that's not the case. I think I put this at like a mid B, just like somewhere around there. The problem I have with Black Ops 6 is the events are really boring. Like I mentioned as we went through, we have one of three events. We have an XP event, we have a challenge event, or we have pick up things event. They're all exactly the same. On top of that, there's no camos as rewards. The rewards are a little bit more focused on gameplay, like getting kill streak, like getting perks, which I do like. But if those events were just a little bit more built in with game modes, like we had with the Squid Games event, which I did like, and then had challenges and have more specific things, I think these events could be better. This could be, I think, A tier with what we have right now. But they're just kind of boring. So decent rewards, boring events, B tier. So I think when I look through my list here, when we actually have a look at this, there's two things that are really important. Keeping me engaged with a good amount of events, keeping the events varied, making it so you create the events not just to increase retention, but increase enjoyment of the game, and themes. Like if we actually look at the game that shocked me the most, which was Call of Duty World War II, each of these events created a new space in the headquarters where they redid the look of the entire thing, new aesthetics in multiplayer, gameplay wise, skins. They did that so early on before any other game did, and that made the game interesting. In fact, I think that's the only thing that kept that game alive, because honestly, World War II, I found the gameplay pretty boring, but the seasonal events, absolutely insanely well done. And I think we need to see more of that, more varied challenges, more varied gameplay, creating things that are for fun, not just for retention.
We are reaching for the stars.